All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some sources you sent over about AI-powered content creation. Specifically, we're going to be looking at this new tool from Google called NotebookLM.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Have you played around with it at all?
I have. I've experimented with it a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what it can do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really excited to dive into with you today, because the stuff that it's able to pull off is really, really mind-blowing. We're talking about taking like your Google Docs, your YouTube videos, even those PowerPoint presentations that we all love to hate, and turning them into podcasts.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how AI is changing how we consume information. Like, imagine being able to just listen to a podcast that summarizes like a dense research paper, or even an entire book, you know? And it's like having Cliff's Notes on demand for anything you want to learn.
Exactly, and that's what's so fascinating about this. So how does NotebookLM actually work? Is it just like reading the text out loud, or is there something more going on like under the hood?
It's definitely more sophisticated than just text-to-speech. NotebookLM, it utilizes large language models similar to the technology behind ChatGPT to really analyze and understand the content, and then uses this understanding to create a podcast that feels like a conversation, discussing the key points and ideas.
Okay, so you mentioned large language models. Could you break that down a little bit further for our listener? Because I have a feeling they might be wondering what those are all about.
Yeah, so think of them as these incredibly complex algorithms that have been trained on massive amounts of text data. And this training allows them to really understand the nuances of human language and then generate text that sounds really natural and engaging. It's essentially teaching AI to communicate like we do.
So it's not just picking out like random sentences. It's actually like processing the meaning and creating something new based on that.
Exactly.
Which is pretty wild when you think about it. Now, the YouTube video that you sent over had some pretty impressive examples of NotebookLM in action. One that I remember you mentioning was how it handled Odeho Rockhead Kerr's book, No Regrets, Just Lessons.
Right.
And it was able to take like a section on self-love and forgiveness and turn it into a podcast discussing those themes.
Yeah, it took that section and turned it into this podcast. That wasn't just a dry summary. You know, it felt like two people having like a genuine conversation about the book's message.
That's amazing. Now, I know you mentioned that NotebookLM can work with different types of content. What about the PowerPoint example that you found? How did it handle that?
Well, there was this presentation on millennial perceptions in the workplace. And I was pretty skeptical about how NotebookLM would turn slides and bullet points into a podcast, you know?
Right.
But it actually managed to weave the information into a dialogue, even pulling out a key phrase, inspire to aspire O2J, and discussing its meaning within the context of workplace motivation.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. It seems like NotebookLM can handle pretty much anything you throw at it. What about video? Did you find any examples of it processing YouTube videos?
Definitely. There was one video titled, Quit Your Job in 90 Days and Enjoy More Time with Your Family. And NotebookLM created this podcast that essentially broke down the video's advice and presented it as a conversation between two people exploring those concepts.
So it's not just pulling out quotes or snippets. It's actually understanding the overall message and structure of the video. And like building a dialogue around that.
Yeah, and it could be incredibly useful for learning and exploring new ideas.
For sure. It's like having a personal tutor who can take any piece of content and turn it into a digestible and engaging learning experience.
Right.
Now, this might seem a bit meta, but did you find any examples of people using multiple AI tools together with NotebookLM?
Oh, absolutely. The creator of that YouTube video actually used ChatGPT to generate funny podcast topics.
Wow.
They ended up choosing the weirdest excuses for being late, and then they fed that prompt into NotebookLM, and the result was this hilarious podcast that sounded completely natural.
So they're basically combining the brainstorming power of ChatGPT with the conversational abilities of NotebookLM.
Exactly.
That's some next-level content creation right there.
It really highlights the potential of AI as a collaborative tool. You know, we're moving beyond the idea of AI replacing human creativity and into a space where it can augment and enhance our own abilities.
And the possibilities don't stop there. The sources you sent also dive into how NotebookLM can be used to generate income through podcasting. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Okay, so let's dive into these monetization strategies, because the numbers in the sources you sent over were pretty eye-opening. But before we get lost in dollar signs, I think it's important to remember that building a successful podcast takes time and effort. It's not a magic formula for instant riches.
Oh, absolutely. It's about creating something valuable, something that really resonates with an audience. And that takes dedication and consistency and, a genuine passion for what you're doing.
For sure. But that being said, let's talk about sponsorships. The sources mentioned that podcasts can earn a good chunk of change per download just from running ads.
Right. We're talking anywhere from like $18 to $50 per 1,000 downloads for a single ad spot.
Wow.
So imagine you have a podcast that consistently gets 1 million downloads per episode. That's potentially $18,000 to $50,000 from just one ad. And many popular podcasts have multiple ad spots per episode.
Yeah, that's a serious income stream. But I imagine getting to 1 million downloads takes a lot of work.
What about other ways to monetize, especially when you're just starting out?
Well, there's listener support through platforms like Patreon, where people can directly contribute to the podcasters they love. Some podcasters are making anywhere from $500 to $5,000 per month this way, and there are even examples of podcasts earning significantly more. Yeah, the source mentioned Chapo Trap House, which is a political commentary podcast.
Yeah.
And they reportedly make a staggering $170,000 per month from Patreon alone.
Yeah, it's a great example of how niche content can find a dedicated audience willing to support its creation. It shows that you don't necessarily need to appeal to everyone to find success.
Right. Then there are those exclusive deals we hear about, where platforms like Spotify and Apple pay big bucks for podcasters to create content just for them.
Right. Those deals can be incredibly lucrative. Joe Rogan's deal with Spotify is estimated to be worth $100 million, and the podcast Call Her Daddy reportedly signed a $60 million deal.
It's mind-blowing to think that podcasting has become such a significant industry. It really speaks to the power of audio and the deep connection people feel with the host.
Definitely, podcasters can sell things like T-shirts, mugs, stickers, basically anything that represents their brand and resonates with their audience. Successful podcasters can bring in anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 per month from merchandise sales.
Wow, okay, that's not bad. What about affiliate marketing? I've heard that's a popular way for content creators to earn money.
Absolutely. It's where you partner with companies and promote their products or services on your podcast. And when someone makes a purchase through your unique affiliate link, you earn a commission. It's a win-win because you're providing value to your listeners by recommending products you believe in, and you're also generating income for yourself.
That makes sense. It's a way to monetize without directly selling something yourself. So what about using platforms like YouTube? Can podcasters make money by posting their content there?
Definitely, it's becoming increasingly common for podcasters to upload their episodes to YouTube, often with like a static image or simple visuals. And they can then monetize through ads displayed on those videos. It's a smart strategy because it allows you to tap into the massive audience of YouTube while still maintaining that core audio experience.
Do you have any idea of what kind of earnings podcasters are seeing through the YouTube Partner Program?
Yeah, the sources gave some estimates based on the number of views per episode, so smaller channels can potentially make a few $1,000s per month, while medium-sized channels could earn up to $10,000. And for those with a large following, say over 500,000 views per episode, the potential earnings could exceed $50,000 per month.
Those are some impressive figures. So it seems like there are many different ways to monetize a podcast, especially one created using NotebookLM.
Exactly. The key is to experiment and find what works best for your specific audience and content. And of course, it's crucial to be transparent with your listeners about any sponsorships or affiliate relationships. Building trust is essential for long-term success.
All of this talk about earning potential is really exciting. But the sources you sent over also stress that building a successful podcast takes time. They recommend committing at least 1 to 5 years to reach a substantial income level.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Success in podcasting, like any creative endeavor, requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to constantly learn and adapt.
Yeah, it's incredible to think that you could potentially build a whole business around podcasting, especially with tools like NotebookLM, making it so much easier to create the actual content.
It's definitely democratizing the process. In the past, creating podcasts required a lot of technical know-how and equipment. But now with AI kind of stepping in to handle that production side, the barrier to entry is lower than ever.
You mentioned earlier that the creator of the YouTube video was using prompts for ChatGPT to come up with podcast topics. It's like they're using AI to spark their own creativity.
Yeah, it's a fascinating example of how we can use these tools to overcome creative blocks or just, explore new ideas that we might not have thought of otherwise. And the sources actually even included some specific prompts that our listeners can try out with ChatGPT and NotebookLM. It's like a cheat sheet for kind of jumpstarting your podcasting journey.
I love that they provided those actionable steps for our listener to get started. It's one thing to just talk about the potential of AI, but it's even more powerful when you can actually experiment with it yourself.
For sure.
And I think it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages of AI-powered content creation. These tools are evolving so rapidly. Who knows what amazing capabilities will emerge in the coming years?
It's really mind-blowing to think about all the possibilities.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive with some key takeaways for our listener. NotebookLM really does have the potential to revolutionize how we consume and create content. We're talking about turning research papers, meeting notes, even entire books into engaging audio podcasts with just a few clicks.
And it's not just about making information easier to digest, NotebookLM encourages active engagement with the source material. It can spark discussions, challenge your perspectives, and ultimately help you gain a much deeper understanding of the topics that you're interested in.
And let's not forget the potential to turn your passion into a side hustle or even a full-time career. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme by any means, but NotebookLM could be a powerful tool for building a successful podcasting business.
The key takeaway here is that AI is becoming an increasingly accessible and powerful tool for content creation. It's up to us to explore its capabilities, experiment with new approaches, and ultimately find creative and engaging ways to share our voices with the world.
It's an exciting time to be a content creator, and it seems like the future of podcasting is brimming with potential. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into NotebookLM. We hope it sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore the possibilities of AI-powered content creation. Until next time, keep those minds curious.